What do you reckon about the migration review?
Released with fanfare by the federal government today. And spoiler alert, the migration system is f***ed. Hot off the heels of the Defence Strategic Review, the damning report found the current system was broken, failing the nation and in need of a complete overhaul. Unwieldy and complex, the current system is somewhat of a bureaucratic nightmare. Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neil basically said as much as she unveiled the report at the National Press Club.
So complicated that if I drew you a diagram, it would look like a tangled bowl of spaghetti.
And she was very quick to point the finger at the bloke who made that spaghetti. O'Neil reckons that Dutton and the former coalition government caused the mess by favouring temporary migration and creating a low-paid worker class.
You guys are getting paid?
You see, the number of temporary migrant workers in Australia has doubled since 2007 and currently sits at a staggering 1.8 million people. The review found it was this ingredient in O'Neil's metaphorical spaghetti sauce that encouraged the exploitation of workers on temporary visas.
That's only one part of the problem, though.
Yeah, our migration system is so complex. Have a look at this. There's so many visas, it's insane. There's even a category for crew members on super yachts.
Me, can you please get lunch cleared? I'm just starting to make some cocktails.
Turns out the old coalition government's migration policy was best summed up by the slogan, "Stop the boats," just not the big ones filled with rich people.
You know, just to get out there.
I'm excited for the jet ski.
It can be a good trip.
The politicisation of asylum seekers and migration as a whole is just one of the reasons why it's always been a tricky issue for governments to address. O'Neil gave a potted history at the press club, going back to Ben Chifley in the 1940s, before rattling off all the Labor MPs who'd ever done something to be proud of in this space. Whitlam killing off the White Australia policy, Keating dragging us out of a recession with skilled migration. You'd be forgiven for thinking Labor had all this migration stuff figured out. But the fact is, Labor governments are in bed with the unions who don't like the idea of importing cheap foreign workers to take the jobs of union members.
We are the biggest and best and most honest union in this country.
Which is why this migration review is very different to last week's review into the RBA.
Well, the government said they'd support all 51 recommendations in that one.
Yeah, well, that's because sticking the boot into the Reserve Bank is a victimless crime at the moment.
Oh no. Anyway.
This time around, well, it's worth noting the migration review didn't offer a single recommendation, not one. And instead it suggested something called possible reform directions. That's political speak for go hard at all the things you can blame on the other mob.
Well, I guess this is a case where we'll have to agree to disagree.
I don't agree to that.
Things like a skilled occupation list that is outdated and doesn't future-proof Australia's workforce.
Today's world-leading young astrophysicist would wait many months just to get an answer out of our current system.
Many of the jobs on the current list were drawn from one written in 2006. And some of the jobs we need filled weren't even created then.
We add rigid occupation lists which are incapable of adjusting fast enough, especially for growing industries like the tech sector.
But other fixes seem to have votes in mind. Unions wanted the income threshold for bringing in a temporary skilled worker raised from 53 grand to 90 to stop employers importing cheap labour. The government didn't go that far, but they did raise it to $70,000.
What else?
O'Neil also said that temporary skilled workers will now have a pathway to permanent residency. But she knows Aussie voters don't really love the idea of opening the migration floodgates, even though half the population was literally born in another country or had a parent that was. And she was quick to say the government isn't expanding the number of permanent resident places, which currently sits at 195,000 per year.
So what does that mean?
Well, it means there's nothing stopping people applying. Good f***ing luck getting in.
Look, can I just...
What the Labor government has going for it in this situation is a once-in-a-generation worker shortage, and that crisis provides a lot of political cover. Whether that results in a more streamlined and fair migration system remains to be seen, but it sure as shit couldn't be any worse than what we have now.
And as we've said, it's one thing to get them here. Where are they going to live?
No idea. Albo wants to put it back on the states. He's going to pitch a new how-to guide for construction of housing and other infrastructure like hospitals at National Cabinet. He's calling it Better Planning for Stronger Growth. We know the current skills crisis, coupled with supply chain issues, has made it almost impossible to build or rent a home.
Especially in WA.
Yep, and it gets worse. Anglicare just dropped its annual rental affordability snapshot, and it's all bad news. Less than 1% of 46,000 rental listings in Australia were affordable to full-time workers on the minimum wage. FYI, affordable means costing less than 30% of your household income. And this result is the worst we've seen in the 15 years Anglicare has been doing the report. The rental situation is now so dire, Anglicare found people getting welfare payments were struggling to even afford a room in a share house.
Well, not everyone's doing it tough.
Yeah, I would love to know how much Greg Norman is getting from the Saudis to be the CEO of the LIV Golf Tour. Tens, if not hundreds, of millions of dollars is my guess, but the shark landing in WA this week was all about seeing how much money he could get from the McGowan government to stage a LIV event here. The South Australians are staying quiet on how many millions of taxpayer dollars it spent to bring the controversial tour to the Grange Golf Club this month.
Well, the government does say it generated even more in tourism revenue.
Yeah, sure. And that must make it a lot easier to forget that you've aligned yourself with a Saudi Arabian regime responsible for a litany of human rights abuses. But money talks, and the LIV Tour has plenty to offer, so don't be surprised if human rights violations aren't front and centre in any negotiation.
Thanks for the free money, bitch.
When sport and politics mix, you get another bowl of tangled spaghetti.
Good spaghetti.
I'm Ben O'Shea.
For more Up Late, click the subscribe button below.